The MS Lord Selkirk II. The MS Lord Selkirk II was a passenger cruise ship that sailed the Red River and Lake Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada. It was the last and largest cruise ship on Lake Winnipeg, with a capacity of 130 passengers and 40 crew. It was 176 feet long and 41 feet wide, and included among its amenities was a dining room, a lounge, a game room, and a sun deck. It was launched in 1969 and retired in 1990 after 21 years of service. The MS Lord Selkirk II was built to replace the MS Kenora, a wooden vessel that had been operating on Lake Winnipeg since 1897. The MS Lord Selkirk II was initially intended to provide freight and passenger service to the remote communities on the lake, but the demand for this service declined due to the development of roads and air travel. The ship then shifted its focus to offering leisure and vacation cruises, attracting thousands of tourists and guests over the years. Some of its more notable passengers include Queen Elizabeth II and Edward Schreyer, the Premier of Manitoba and later the Governor-General of Canada, who sailed on the ship in 1970. The MS Lord Selkirk II had a turbulent history, facing various challenges and changes of ownership. It was purchased by the Manitoba government in the early 1970s and then by a group of investors led by Harold Einerson in 1979. In 1983, it was bought by local businessmen Jim Gauthier and Bill Harris, who refitted the ship and ran it until 1986. The final owner was Dr. Joseph Slogan of Selkirk, who operated the ship until 1990. The ship was idled in 1991 due to declining passenger traffic and competition from other river excursion companies, and unfortunately, it never sailed again. The MS Lord Selkirk II was abandoned and left to decay in the Selkirk Slough, where it became an eyesore and a hazard. It was vandalized, set on fire, and looted over the years, and it also leaked fuel and oil into the water. The ship's demolition was delayed by legal disputes and environmental concerns until the province and the city partnered to pay $400,000 for its removal in 2015. The ship was dismantled by Sask Steel, a company that salvaged some of the ship's parts and donated them to the Marine Museum of Manitoba. The ship's sinking marked the end of an era for Lake Winnipeg's cruise industry. The MS Lord Selkirk was a remarkable and unique ship that played an important role in the history and culture of Manitoba. It was a symbol of the province's connection to the water and the land, and a source of pride and joy for many Manitobans. It was also a witness to the changes and challenges that the province faced over the decades, and a reminder of the power and mystery of the sea. The MS Lord Selkirk II was more than just a ship. It was a legend. The HMS Resolute. The HMS Resolute was a British ship that played an important role in the history of Arctic exploration and diplomacy. It was originally built as a merchant ship vessel named Ptarmigan, but it was purchased by the Royal Navy in 1850. And during that time, it was renamed Resolute. It was specially outfitted for Arctic service, with strong timbers, an internal heating system, and a polar bear figurehead. Resolute was part of several expeditions sent to search for the missing Franklin expedition, which had vanished while looking for the Northwest Passage in 1845. Resolute sailed under the command of Horatio Thomas Austin between 1850 and 1851. But between 1852 and 1854, it was under the command of Sir Edward Belcher. During these voyages, Resolute and its crew endured harsh conditions, explored unknown regions, and discovered traces of Franklin's first winter camp on Beechey Island. In 1854, Resolute became trapped in the ice near Melville Island, so Belcher ordered the ship to be abandoned. Resolute then drifted for over a year in the ice until it was found by an American whaler named James Buddington in 1855. He and his crew boarded the ship and sailed it to New London, Connecticut. The British government waived its claim to the ship, and the American Congress purchased it for $40,000. It was then restored and presented to Queen Victoria as a gesture of goodwill and friendship in December of 1856. The ship was welcomed with great fanfare in England and resumed its naval service until 1879, when it was decommissioned and broken up. One of the most lasting legacies of Resolute is the Resolute desk, which was made from the ship's timbers and given to President Rutherford B. Hayes by Queen Victoria in 1880. The desk has been used by several American presidents and is currently located in the Oval Office of the White House. The desk symbolizes the enduring bond between the United States and the United Kingdom, as well as the spirit of adventure and exploration that Resolute embodied. The SV Bel Amica. The SV Bel Amica was a ghost ship that was discovered off the coast of Sardinia, Italy in 2006. The Italian Coast Guard found the ship drifting near a rocky shore with no sign of life on board. The ship was a classic schooner with 2 masts and a wooden hull. It looked like an antique vessel from a bygone era, but it was actually a modern yacht. The mystery deepened when the Coast Guard searched the ship and found some strange clues. There was a half-eaten meal of Egyptian food on the table, French maps of North African seas on the wall, and a flag of Luxembourg on the mast. The ship had no registration number, no radio, and no identification papers. The only name on the ship was a wooden plaque that read Bel Amica, which means beautiful friend in Italian. The Coast Guard tried to trace the origin and the owner of the ship, but they faced many difficulties. The ship had never been registered in Italy or any other country. The flag of Luxembourg was a fake, as the country had no maritime registry. The ship had no engine and relied on sails and oars for propulsion, and there was also no GPS on board. The mystery was finally solved when a man from Luxembourg named Frank Ryou-Un came forward and claimed to be the owner of the ship. He said that he'd bought the ship in 1998 and had sailed it around the Mediterranean for several years. He explained that he'd left the ship anchored in deep water near Sardinia in 2004 when he'd gone back to his home country to deal with an emergency. He said that he'd planned to return to the ship, but for some reason he'd forgotten all about it. He also admitted that he'd avoided registering the ship and paying taxes on it. So the Italian authorities seized the ship and fined the owner for tax evasion and illegal navigation. The SS Ourang Medan. The SS Ourang Medan was a supposed ghost ship that became a legend after its entire crew allegedly died under mysterious circumstances in the late 1940s. The story has been told and retold in various sources, but its factual accuracy and even the ship's existence are uncertain. But some of the details of the story are as follows. The SS Ourang Medan sent out a distress signal in the Straits of Malacca between Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. The message said, "We float. All officers, including captain, dead, lying in chart room and on bridge. Probably whole crew dead. I die." A nearby American ship, the Silver Star, responded to the call and boarded the ship, only to find the bodies of the crew with their faces frozen in horror, their mouths open, and their eyes wide. Even the ship's dog was dead, snarling at something unseen. There was no sign of injury, violence, or disease on the corpses, and there was no clue as to what caused their deaths. Then, before the Silver Star could investigate further, smoke started to rise from the cargo hold of the Ourang Medan, forcing the rescue crew to abandon the ship. Just moments later, the ship exploded and sank, leaving no trace behind. The story of the SS Ourang Medan has sparked many theories and speculations about what happened to the ship and its crew. Some suggest that the ship was carrying a secret cargo of hazardous materials, like nitroglycerin, potassium cyanide, or sulfuric acid, that leaked and poisoned the crew. Others propose that the ship was attacked by pirates, smugglers, or enemy agents, who killed the crew and sabotaged the ship. Some even claim that the ship was haunted by ghosts, cursed by voodoo, or invaded by aliens or sea monsters. However, there's little evidence to support any of these theories, and there are many doubts about the authenticity of the story itself. There are no official records of a ship named the Ourang Medan or of its registration, origin, destination, or cargo. The sources that mention the story are mostly newspapers, magazines, and books of dubious reliability. And they often contradict each other on the dates, locations, and names involved. Some researchers have suggested that the story is a hoax, a fabrication, or a misinterpretation of another incident. The Ryou-Un Maru. The Ryou-Un Maru was a Japanese fishing boat that became a ghost ship after it was swept away by the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. It drifted across the Pacific Ocean for a year until it was spotted by a Canadian Air Patrol near British Columbia. The ship had no legal owner and posed a potential hazard to navigation, so the U.S. Coast Guard decided to sink it with gunfire in the Gulf of Alaska. The Ryou-Un Maru's fate attracted media attention and sparked curiosity about its origin, cargo, and crew. The Ryou-Un Maru was built around 1982 and was used for squid fishing or shrimping. It was owned by a Hokkaido-based fishing company and was moored in Aomori Prefecture in Honshu. When the earthquake and tsunami struck in March of 2011, the ship broke free and was carried away by the Kuroshio Current. The Japan Coast Guard assumed that the ship had sunk and granted the owner an exception to cancel its registration. However, the ship survived the disaster and continued to drift eastward. The Ryou-Un Maru was first sighted by a Canadian Air Patrol on March 20, 2012, about 150 nautical miles off the coast of Haida Gwaii. The ship was then tracked by the U.S. Coast Guard as it entered U.S. waters on April 1, 2012. The ship was about 148 feet long and weighed 150 tons, but its condition, origin, and cargo were unknown. A Canadian fishing vessel, the Bernice C, attempted to salvage the ship, but failed due to a ruptured fuel tank and a broken tow line. The U.S. Coast Guard then determined that the best option was to sink the ship to prevent it from running aground or colliding with other vessels. So, on April 5, 2012, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Anacapa fired explosive rounds at the ship, causing it to catch fire and sink in 6,000 feet of water. The Ryou-Un Maru's story captured the public's imagination and raised questions about the ship's history and the fate of its crew. Some speculated that the ship was carrying a secret or dangerous cargo like explosives that could have caused harm to the environment or human health. Others wondered if the ship was haunted by the ghosts of its crew or encountered any paranormal phenomena during its voyage. Some even compared the ship to the Flying Dutchman, a legendary ghost ship that can never make port. However, there's no evidence to support any of these theories, and the ship's crew was most likely not on board when the vessel was set adrift. The Ryou-Un Maru was a remarkable example of a ghost ship, a vessel that's found adrift or abandoned without any apparent cause or explanation. The Ryou-Un Maru also became a symbol of the aftermath of the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, one of the most devastating natural disasters in history. The Homebush Bay Shipwrecks. The Homebush Bay Shipwrecks are a fascinating sight in Sydney, Australia. They're the remains of old ships that were abandoned in the bay after being used for various purposes, such as war, transport, and tourism. The shipwrecks have become overgrown with plants and animals, creating a unique ecosystem and striking contrast with the modern city skyline. The history of the shipwrecks dates back to the mid-20th century, when Homebush Bay was a shipbreaking yard. Shipbreaking is the process of dismantling old ships and recycling their parts. Many ships that were no longer needed or profitable were brought to the Homebush Bay to be scrapped. Some of their ships were left behind, either because they were too large, too expensive, or too dangerous to remove. Over time, the ships sank into the shallow, muddy water and became part of the landscape. The most famous shipwreck in Homebush Bay is the SS Airfield, a coal-carrying ship that was built in 1911 and was used by the U.S. government during World War II. The SS Airfield was retired in 1972 when it was towed to Homebush Bay. It was supposed to be dismantled. However, the shipbreaking yard closed down before the SS Airfield could be scrapped. So the ship was left to decay. The SS Airfield is now covered with lush greenery, especially mangroves, which have grown on its hull and deck. The ship is also home to various birds and fish, and has become a popular attraction for photographers and tourists. Other shipwrecks in Homebush Bay include the SS Mortlake Bank, a steel-hulled steam collier that was built in 1924, and the SS Heroic, a tugboat that was constructed in the UK in 1909 to tow barges and ships. There's also the HMS Karangi, a steel boom defense vessel that was built in 1941 to protect Australian harbors from enemy submarines, and several smaller vessels such as barges, dredges, and lighters. These shipwrecks are also overgrown with plants and animals and can be seen from the shore. The Homebush Bay shipwrecks are a remarkable example of how nature can reclaim human-made objects and transform them into something new and beautiful. They're also a reminder of the history and heritage of Sydney's maritime industry and the environmental impact of shipbreaking. Which of these stories did you find the most fascinating? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!